sa first question, how do we know it's working? Actually, that's the basic question asked of the, as I mentioned, there is a cluster for the MRT. So part of the work of the MRT is really monitoring all the projects and activities of the participating agencies. In fact, what we're doing is really trying to map out where all the projects are, because the intention really is not to implement projects or activities just for the sake of implementing. If there's a process for us really to align or cluster our initiatives in the regions where they are needed as identified by DPRM, we're trying to do that in the cluster. And our cluster meetings happen well, at least quarterly, but we actually meet also when there's a need to meet more often than quarterly. But aside from meeting, the agencies are required to submit reports to DTI as the lead implementer of the program. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the reason why I've shown the performance of the manufacturing sector in the Southeast Asian context as well as in the Philippine economy is because these are indicators that we are trying to monitor. We're not saying that each of the activity that we're trying to do directly affects the performance of the manufacturing sector, because even if we're trying to do that, lahat sinasabi sa amin, a performance is always based on a confluence of factors. We cannot always say that this is directly attributed to just one activity or intervention. So what we're doing is trying to monitor all these performance indicators and trying to see whether the performance is really happening in the sectors where we are very active. As I mentioned, there are some focus sectors that we're looking at, like food processing, like automotive, electronics, and electrical equipment. So, in a way, we're like saying na nag-grow siya because we're trying to do these activities specifically for these sectors. So that's one. Now, if we're not growing the sectors we're focusing on, maybe we're doing the wrong interventions, then it's part of our discussion in the cluster to look at where we went wrong. Mali ba yung focus area namin, or mali yung naging kumbaga parang intervention na ginawa namin. So that's part of our monitoring and assessment within the cluster. And not only the cluster agencies are actually doing the monitoring, we're being also assessed in the implementation of the program based on what we have committed in the PPP. So we have a planning committee or a subcommittee for industry and services also headed by NEDA. And part of the assessment there is looking at jobs generation contributed by the manufacturing sector among all the other sectors in that chapter. So kumbaga, meron kaming tinitingnan din na indicators as well as feedback mechanism from the stakeholders. Yeah. So if we're not making a dent, it is also the stakeholders who tell us na baka mas maganda ito yung gawin nyo. Yun nga lang, most of the interventions being asked of us, nagre-require talaga karaniwan ng fiscal support from government. Particularly dun sa support facilities like testing laboratories, product development centers, and these are big investments for government. But we're doing that. So pagdating naman dun sa experience, wala ko alam dun sa private sector, but I know for government, there is the possibility to be employed kahit na wala kang work experience. We do it on a contractual basis, at least for DTI or BOI, because we want to test. Kasi currently ngayon, lalo din ako ninervyos dun sa findings ni Ma'am eh. Ngayon, what we're trying to do in BOI is really try to get the best of the best, because we're doing a lot of sectoral analysis, a lot of policy and planning. And what we want really to get are those graduates who have the potential really to do a lot of good planning for the government. Kasi kumbaga marami na kaming criticisms na naririnig. We've been doing a lot of road mapping for the past years, past decades. So what's new in this industry road mapping project that we want? And we lack a lot of competence in doing a lot of the sectoral analysis and studies. Kaya nga kami laging nakadikit sa PIBS. Kasi nandun talaga yung think tank PIBS, kaya doon kami nakadikit. But we hope also to grow that talent inside of DNI. Kaya yung requirement namin na at least 1 year experience before ka talaga ma-permanently hire in DOI or in DPI, siniseryoso namin. Pagdating doon sa what's being done, actually sir, sabi ko yung sa MRP natin, that's 2014 to 2016. So marami kaming ginagawa ngayon and there are different activities na nalilist po. Ngayon, for the mechanism, naka-establish na po siya. We have actually reactivated the Industry Development Council. In fact, it had its first meeting last April 4th. We're going to have the second council meeting this October 9. So the mechanism is there. Na-highlight ko lang yun kanina because when we go around, sabi nila, DTI, BOI, that's good now. Because that is your declared priority of this administration. That is a declared priority of the DBM for 2014 to 2016. But what will happen to the road mapping project or the industry development program of the government beyond this administration? So, we always try to highlight na, well, kung kami tatanungin nyo, work will continue beyond 2016. Whatever we're doing right now with the current structure, the current coordination mechanism that I showed you earlier, we will continue with that even beyond this administration. So yung sectoral working groups namin, that is also what we've been telling the private sector. We will continue to work, we will continue to meet regularly. Kasi yung working groups po namin, they were created starting April of 2013. So more than a year pa lang ang working groups namin. So hindi sila lahat na-create in April. Some were only created this year. Depende po kung kailan na po yung roadmap at kung kailan na-submit sa amin. So what we're doing right now, as soon as the roadmap is submitted and deemed final, ibig sabihin, wala na kaming gaps in the information major, or the recommendations are specific enough to be understood by all stakeholders or the members of the working group, we create the working group and we actually make to implement it. So ito yung current mechanism na meron ngayon at ito yung current structure na ginagamit namin for the implementation of the roadmaps, for identifying the prioritized projects, interventions, programs for the different sectors. And yun lang ang sinasabi namin for the private sector. Don't worry, whatever happens, we're still here beyond 2016. And what we have established 2014, 2015, 2016 is good. So yun.